What if I told you that the most dangerous man in Roman Reigns' life isn't Cody Rhodes, isn't The Rock, and it damn sure isn't anyone on the current WWE roster? What if the person who could single-handedly destroy everything Roman has built, everything he's sacrificed for, everything he's bled for over the past 4 years is the one man who stood by his side through it all? I'm talking about Paul Heyman, and what he just did is so calculated, so methodical, so absolutely devastating that when Roman finds out, and trust me, he will find out, the tribal chief is going to lose his mind. You think you've seen Roman angry before? You haven't seen anything yet. And here's the part that's going to make your blood boil. The part that's going to have you throwing your phone across the room. Paul Heyman knew exactly what he was doing from day one, and he's been playing Roman like a fiddle this entire time. But before I expose what just happened, before I reveal the bombshell that's about to tear the bloodline apart for good, you need to understand something crucial about the relationship between these two men. Because what Paul just orchestrated goes deeper than betrayal, it goes deeper than business. It cuts to the very core of who Roman Reigns believes himself to be. For over 1,200 days, Paul Heyman has been the voice, the counsel, the strategist behind the most dominant championship reign in modern WWE history. He's been the special counsel to the tribal chief, the wise man who whispered in Roman's ear during every major decision, every family crisis, every moment when the weight of the championship and the weight of being the head of the table threatened to crush him. Paul has been there for the highs and the lows, for the moments of glory and the moments of doubt that Roman would never dare show the WWE universe. Their relationship transcended the typical manager and wrestler dynamic because Paul wasn't just managing Roman's career. He was managing Roman's legacy, his family's legacy, the very foundation of what it means to be a Samoan wrestling dynasty in this business. Every promo Paul cut elevated Roman to mythical status. Every carefully chosen word painted Roman as not just a champion, but as the champion, the final boss, the one true head of the table who demanded acknowledgement from everyone who stepped into his presence. Paul made us believe in Roman's reign, even when we didn't want to. And that's the genius of Paul Heyman. Think about all the legendary moments they created together. Think about the psychological warfare Paul waged on Roman's behalf against every challenger who dared step up. Whether it was Edge, Daniel Bryan, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, or any of the dozens of superstars who tried and failed to dethrone the tribal chief, Paul was there crafting the narrative, building the mystique, making Roman feel invincible, and making his opponents doubt themselves before they even stepped into the ring. Paul didn't just talk, he manipulated reality itself, bending perception until everyone, including Roman's opponents and sometimes even Roman himself, believed that losing was impossible. That's power, real power, the kind of influence that money can't buy and championships can't grant. Paul Heyman gave Roman something more valuable than gold. He gave him an aura of inevitability, a presence that made grown men tremble, and a legacy that will be discussed for generations. But here's where everything changes. Here's where the foundation starts to crack. And here's where Paul Heyman proves once again why he's the most dangerous man to ever hold a microphone in professional wrestling. While Roman was busy defending his title, busy being the workhorse champion, busy carrying WWE on his back through every pay-per-view and every major show, Paul was quietly, methodically, building something else entirely. He was nurturing another relationship, cultivating another alliance, positioning himself for the moment when Roman's reign would inevitably end. And that moment came at WrestleMania when Cody Rhodes finally finished his story and took the undisputed WWE Championship from Roman Reigns. We all saw Roman's devastation. We saw a man who had defined himself by that championship suddenly forced to confront who he is without it. We saw the tribal chief humbled, vulnerable, human for the first time in years. And where was Paul Heyman during all of this? He was right there, wasn't he? Standing by Roman's side, offering comfort, offering reassurance, telling Roman that they would rebuild, that they would reclaim what was theirs, that the story wasn't over. Except it was all a lie. Every word, every gesture, every moment of seeming loyalty was Paul Heyman doing what Paul Heyman does best, hedging his bets and positioning himself on the winning side of history. Because while Paul was publicly supporting Roman, while he was playing the role of the devastated counsel who had failed his tribal chief, he was privately already aligned with someone else. Someone who Roman trusted, someone from his own bloodline, someone who Paul has been whispering to in the same way he whispered to Roman for over 3 years. I'm talking about Solo Sikoa, and the bombshell that Paul just dropped is that he's been Solo's counsel all along, orchestrating Solo's rise to power, engineering the new bloodline, and systematically dismantling everything Roman built so that Solo could take his place as the true tribal chief. Now let's talk about how deep this conspiracy really goes, because it's not just about Paul switching sides after WrestleMania. Oh no. This goes back months, possibly even years. Think about every time Solo stepped out of line, every time he made a decision without Roman's approval, every time he seemed to be operating on his own authority and pushing the boundaries of what Roman would accept. We all thought Solo was being rebellious, that he was a young lion trying to establish himself, that he was struggling with being in Roman's shadow. But what if all of that was Paul Heyman's influence? What if every move Solo made, every wrestler he brought into the bloodline without Roman's blessing, every challenge to Roman's authority was Paul planting seeds? Paul grooming Solo to be the next version of what Roman once was. But better, more ruthless, more willing to do whatever it takes. Paul saw the writing on the wall long before any of us did. He knew Roman's reign had an expiration date. He knew that eventually someone would dethrone the tribal chief, and instead of going down with the ship, Paul made sure he had a lifeboat ready. Remember when Solo started bringing in guys like Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa without consulting Roman? Remember how Solo seemed to be building his own faction within the bloodline, creating a power base that didn't require Roman's approval or blessing? We all thought that was Solo being impulsive, being young and ambitious, maybe even being disrespectful to the tribal chief. But now it all makes sense. Paul was in Solo's ear the entire time, teaching him the same lessons he taught Roman, giving him the same playbook, showing him how to consolidate power, how to build loyalty, how to make himself indispensable and irreplaceable. Paul was essentially running two operations simultaneously, maintaining his public role as Roman's special counsel while privately mentoring Solo to be Roman's replacement. The audacity of that, the sheer calculated coldness of playing both sides while Roman trusted him completely. It is almost admirable in its ruthlessness if it wasn't so absolutely disgusting. And here's the part that should make every single Roman Reigns fan absolutely furious. Paul used Roman's own family against him. He exploited the very thing Roman held most sacred, the very foundation of the bloodline. The concept of family and loyalty and blood being thicker than anything else in this business. Paul took those principles that Roman lived by and weaponized them, turning Solo into the instrument of Roman's downfall. Every piece of advice Paul gave Roman about trusting family, about keeping the bloodline strong, about Solo being ready to step up when needed. It was all part of the plan to eventually replace Roman with someone Paul could control even more effectively. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Roman Reigns became too powerful, too independent, too much of his own man. There were times when Roman didn't need Paul. Times when Roman's instincts and his own intelligence guided decisions, and for someone like Paul Heyman who thrives on being the puppet, that's unacceptable. Think about the evolution of Roman's character over those 1200 days. In the beginning, Roman needed Paul, desperately. He needed someone to do the talking, someone to handle the psychological aspects of being a heel, someone to give him legitimacy as a dominant champion. But as time went on, Roman grew into the role. He became comfortable on the microphone. His promos became legendary without Paul having to say a word. His in-ring psychology became so sharp that he could tell entire stories without any manager interference. Roman was becoming complete, whole, self-sufficient, and for Paul Heyman, that represented a problem. Because if Roman doesn't need Paul anymore, then what value does Paul bring? If the tribal chief can function at the highest level without his special counsel, then Paul's position becomes ceremonial rather than essential, and Paul Heyman never wants to be just a figurehead. Solo Sikoa represents a return to the early days of Roman's reign, when Paul had complete influence, when every major decision went through him, when he was truly the special counsel in every sense of the word. Solo is younger, hungrier, and most importantly, more willing to defer to Paul's wisdom without question. Solo hasn't reached that level of complete self-actualization that Roman achieved, which means Solo still needs Paul in a way that Roman no longer did. And Paul, being the opportunist and strategist that he is, recognized this and pivoted accordingly. He saw a chance to start fresh with a client who would value him more, depend on him more, and give him the level of control and influence he craves. It's purely transactional, purely business. And that's what makes it so cold and so devastating. And Paul revealed all of this not in some private conversation, not in a backstage segment that could be explained away or misunderstood, but in a public declaration where he acknowledged Solo as the tribal chief, where he transferred all the reverence and respect and acknowledgement he once demanded for Roman, directly to Solo. He did it in a way that leaves no room for interpretation, no possibility of claiming it was taken out of context. Paul Heyman looked directly into the camera with that same intensity, that same passion, that same conviction he once reserved exclusively for Roman Reigns, and told the world that his loyalty has shifted, that his counsel now belongs to Solo Sikoa, and that Roman Reigns is yesterday's news. The disrespect is staggering, the betrayal is complete, and the message is crystal clear. Paul Heyman bows to no man, serves no master permanently, and will always position himself wherever power currently resides. But let's dig even deeper into what this means for Roman personally, because this isn't just about business or career moves. Paul Heyman was family to Roman in every way except blood. He was the uncle, the trusted advisor who sat at the table and helped make decisions that affected not just Roman's career but his entire family's position in WWE. Paul knew Roman's children, knew Roman's wife, understood the pressure Roman felt to honor his father's legacy and his grandfather's legendary status. Paul was there during private moments, family moments, Times when the cameras were off and Roman could just be Joe and Noah, instead of the tribal chief. That level of access, that level of intimacy and trust, makes this betrayal cut so much deeper than any rival or enemy could ever achieve. CM Punk can talk trash about Roman. Cody Rhodes can beat him for championships. The Rock can overshadow him. But none of them were invited into Roman's inner circle the way Paul was. None of them held Roman's secrets and vulnerabilities the way Paul does. The fallout from this is going to be nuclear because Roman doesn't just lose his special counsel. He doesn't just lose Paul's strategic mind and promotional genius. He loses the one person who understood him better than anyone else in the business. Paul knows every weakness, every insecurity, every button to push to get inside Roman's head. He knows what Roman fears most, what keeps him up at night, what doubts plague him even at his most dominant. And now, all of that knowledge, all of those secrets, all of that intimate understanding of what makes Roman Reigns tick is being used against him by the man he trusted most. Imagine having someone who knows you that well, who's seen you at your absolute lowest, who understands your psychological triggers and emotional vulnerabilities, suddenly become your enemy. That's not just losing an ally, that's handing your opponent a detailed instruction manual on how to destroy you. This is personal in a way that transcends championships and storylines because Paul didn't just betray Roman for business reasons. He betrayed everything their relationship represented. He proved that loyalty means nothing when opportunity comes calling, that all those years of standing together meant nothing when a better option presented itself. That Roman was never truly the tribal chief in Paul's eyes, but simply the meal ticket until the next one came along. And you know what the most devastating part is? Paul probably doesn't even see it as a betrayal. In his mind, he's just doing what he's always done, what he did with Brock Lesnar, what he did with CM Punk, what he's done with every client throughout his legendary career. He aligns himself with whoever can benefit most from his services and whoever he can benefit most from representing. It's not personal, it's business. And that cold, calculating pragmatism is exactly what makes Paul Heyman so dangerous and so effective. When Roman returns and confronts Paul about this, and that confrontation is inevitable, we're going to see a side of Roman Reigns we've never witnessed before. Not the cocky tribal chief who smirked his way through victories. Not the ruthless champion who destroyed everyone in his path. But a man genuinely hurt, genuinely betrayed by someone he considered family. There will be anger, yes, explosive volcanic rage that will probably result in someone getting speared through a wall or worse. But underneath that, anger will be something more dangerous. Pain, heartbreak, and the kind of emotional devastation that transforms people at their core. Roman's going to question everything, doubt everyone, and build walls around himself that nobody will be able to penetrate. The Roman Reigns who emerges from this betrayal won't trust anyone ever again, won't let anyone close, won't allow himself to be vulnerable or open, or dependent on another human being. And that's when Roman is going to be most dangerous, because a wounded animal is unpredictable, and Roman Reigns, with nothing left to lose, is terrifying. Think about what Roman was capable of when he had everything to protect, when he had the championship, the bloodline, his position as tribal chief, and Paul's counsel. Now, imagine what he'll do when all of that is gone, when he has no title to defend, no family to lead, no trusted advisor to temper his worst instincts. That Roman will be pure chaos, pure violence, operating on instinct and emotion rather than strategy and calculation. He won't care about wins and losses, won't care about championships or accolades. He'll only care about revenge, about making Paul and Solo pay for what they've done, about burning down everything they're trying to build the same way they burned down everything he built. The question everyone should be asking isn't whether Roman will get revenge on Paul Heyman, because that's guaranteed. Paul knows it's coming, Solo knows it's coming, the entire WWE universe knows it's coming. The question is how far Roman will go, what lines he'll cross, and whether the Roman Reigns who emerges from this betrayal will be someone even more dangerous than the tribal chief we knew. Will he destroy Solo physically, ending his career before it really gets started? Will he systematically dismantle the new bloodline, picking them off one by one until Solo is left alone and defenseless? Or will he do something even worse, something so personal and so devastating that it destroys Paul Heyman's reputation and legacy in this business forever? Because Roman has that power now. He has the platform, the respect, and the standing to make Paul's life absolutely miserable if he chooses to use it. Paul Heyman just created a monster, and the entire WWE universe is about to witness the fallout of the most personal, most devastating betrayal in modern wrestling history. This isn't going to be a quick feud that gets resolved in a few weeks or even a few months. This is going to be a blood feud, a generational war, the kind of rivalry that defines careers and changes the landscape of professional wrestling forever. And when it's all said and done, when the dust finally settles and we look back on this moment, we're going to realize that Paul Heyman didn't just betray Roman Reigns. He unleashed something that's going to haunt WWE for years to come. A Roman Reigns, with nothing to lose and everything to prove, is the most dangerous force in professional wrestling. And Paul just gave him every reason to become exactly that. So buckle up, because what's coming next is going to be absolutely insane.